and realized it was a plane and that hit the building, and of course thought it was just an accident at first, and then saw the other plane hit the other building and realized that it was a terrorist attack.
Laura, our prayers and thoughts are with you.
Thank you.
Karen Wiley and Michael Rosweiler are at St. Vincent's Hospital searching for their missing father, Roger Mark Rosweiler. Karen, what was he do? Was he in, which tower was he in?
He was in Tower 1, and he was on the 100th floor, and we know he was there because a coworker of his had received a voicemail from him at 8:40 asking him to go to lunch. We haven't heard anything else except we had gotten a fax. My mom and my sister at home got a fax saying that, from somebody in the Coast Guard, saying that an unidentified male, John Doe, was admitted to a burn unit, matching his full description down to his back surgery. And we're not sure if it was a false lead or just trying to keep the hope and just hoping that that was him, or that he's somewhere and we can find him. We've been passing out flyers all.
I see that. Michael, where was he admitted? Where was this John Doe admitted to a burn center? Where?
We don't know. We heard the fax said that he was sent to Jefferson Hospital, and we talked to a bunch of people on the street, and nobody has heard from it or heard about the hospital. And then later on, we got some news that he was shipped to Canada. So we have no further information.
Karen, do you know what hospital in Canada the John Doe was sent to?
They didn't know. Our family was trying to call, and they don't seem to be having any luck right now finding a John Doe anywhere. So
well, maybe we can help. If someone watching in Canada or somewhere knows about a John Doe who had burns from that tragedy, there's a number you can call. It's 908-782-4986. That's 908-782-4986. Karen and Michael, I sure hope you find Mark.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Roger Mark Rosweiler. The number again, 908-782-4986. Let's check in with Gil Baker, the New Yorker who helped out after the bombing. Where were you, Gil?
Well, I began the day just north of Houston Street, which was some distance from the World Trade Center, directing traffic at an intersection. The NYPD directed me to go to an intersection that needed some supervision and didn't have any officers. So I was at an intersection there for an hour or so, and then they were calling for help at a triage setup center that they were putting together at Northmore and Greenwich. And so I went over there and ended up ultimately directing traffic for 7 hours.
And this is a video you took, right? The video we're seeing now is video you took.
Yeah, it is.
How did you think of doing that?
Well, I worked 13 hours as a volunteer, and at the end of that period of time, I was tired but still enervated, and thought it would be a good idea to capture the heroics, basically, of the fire department and the police in their efforts to find people.
That helmet you're wearing signifies what?
Signifies you don't want to get your head caved in by a piece of falling debris. These were given away, Larry. These helmets were given away.
What do you do for a living, Gil?
I'm a filmmaker. That's what I do, Larry.
Aha. So you were appropriately armed, in a sense.
I came back armed. I worked 13 hours without a camera, had no intention of shooting anything. When I finally made it to the epicenter, which was at night, I got down there at about 10 at night. One of my first assignments was to move 11 surgeons to the new triage center, which was no longer at Northmore Street and Greenwich, but was down right across the street at One Liberty Plaza, a building which is going to be falling down if it hasn't already. So,
boy, wow, what a thing to live through.
Yes.
Thank you, Gil. Gil Baker.
You're welcome.
Wow. Joining us now in Washington, three distinguished members of the United States Senate. Senator Joseph Lieberman, Democrat of Connecticut. He, of course, was his party. That is Senator Biden that you're looking at. There's Senator Lieberman. He is the Democrat of Connecticut, member of the Armed Services Committee, and a chairman of Governmental Affairs, and the former vice presidential candidate of his party. Senator Joe Biden now is Democrat of Delaware, chairman of Foreign Relations. And Senator Jon Kyl, our friend from Arizona, a member of the Select Intelligence Committee, a ranking member of Judiciary Committee's Subcommittee on Technology, Terrorism, and Government Information. And let's go first to Jon Kyl on Capitol Hill before we talk with our senators. John?
Larry, I've got some new information for you. What we have learned is that Republicans and Democrats on the leadership level are working with the White House right now on what some are calling a resolution authorizing the use of force to respond to these attacks. J.C. Watts, one of the members of the Republican leadership in the House, is calling it a resolution of resolve. We know this congressional leaders on both sides say this was a request that came from the White House for such a resolution. Language is being worked out. There are some concerns that have already been raised by some Democratic members that this could be something like a Gulf of Tonkin resolution. They don't want to go that far. They don't want to allow a blank check for military action. But this is something that right now over on the House side, leadership members on both sides trying to work out some kind of an agreement on language, because the White House wants something further, something more than what the Congress did today. As you know, the Congress today debated a resolution, passed resolution in the Senate 100-0, basically condemning this act and calling for unity and calling for action. This would be something a little bit further, something like what we saw back in 1991 with the Gulf War resolution authorizing the use of force, but there's no agreement yet on exactly how far that would go, but this is something that's going on right now at this late hour in the Capitol.
Thanks, John. And Senator Lieberman, your comment on what Jon Kyl just told us.
Larry, I haven't seen the words. I've heard about the discussions. There will not be a significant disagreement among members of the Senate, and I would guess the House, on party lines. We're all united. We support a response, retaliation, and I think even beyond that, we support a genuine, long-term, comprehensive, sustained war against terrorism until we beat it and we don't have to face this kind of tragedy again.
Senator Biden, though, Jon Kyl did say that some Democrats were a little wary, and Senator Lieberman says no. Do you join Senator Lieberman?
Well, I'm part of that group that has staff there working out the language, and the answer is there's going to be no disagreement. Originally, there was a discussion about a declaration of war, and as John McCain said earlier in the preceding program, the question was war against whom, and so there's going to be no disagreement. I predict that what we come out with will be 100-0, and I think there'll be absolute resolve. Part of the confusion related to how the request was communicated and so on, but I think it's a non-issue.
Senator Kyl, you're a member of the Select Intelligence Committee. Did intelligence fail us?
In one sense, Larry, you'd have to say it failed us because we didn't predict what was going to happen, but there's a connotation to that somebody was grossly negligent and to blame, and we cannot conclude that yet. Until we do our complete analysis, we're really not going to know what we knew. I think the key thing is we've got to continue to remind ourselves that we don't know what we don't know, and we shouldn't assume that we can predict these kinds of things.
What we do know, Senator Lieberman, is that men who shouldn't have got into airports got into airplanes and commandeered them.
Absolutely right, Larry. But by total coincidence, the committee I now chair today held a long-planned hearing on the vulnerability of America's critical infrastructure to enemy attack. We happen to focus today on computers and the way in which our financial systems and energy systems are dependent on them, and they can be broken into. But the same is true of transportation and air transport. And we just let our guard down. I mean, I think yesterday was a turning point in American history, and I think what it says to us is that we've got to begin to organize to defend our homeland in a way we never have before, because we thought the oceans protected us. But now we're subject to attack from terrorists, from cyber attackers, and indeed from ballistic missiles, and we've got to put our guard up.
Senator Biden, do we follow rules of law, something that this country and all of us are raised with, or do we, as 94% of Americans say, go in and take them out?
Well, by the way, when you go in and take them out, you don't have to follow rules of law. The rules of law apply to American citizens and people on American soil. There is not a rule of law when there's a war. There's
but you could file it. You could file it. You could go to international courts. You could file a brief for the country asking.
They actually ridiculous. Wrong. Ridiculous. Not even in the game. A country yields its sovereignty when, in fact, it participates in an act that causes grave damage to another country. There is no question under any law, international or otherwise, that if we have the proof to show that there is a complicitous country, that they have committed an act of war against us, and retaliation is fully within every single solitary category of law, international and local. That's very different. That's very different, because with all due respect, Larry, you guys keep confusing these terms, in my humble opinion. And that is, you talk about the rule of law. The rule of law applies to the United States of America and American citizens. We cannot, will not, and must adhere to. We cannot yield on that. We can't yield on the Bill of Rights. We can't yield on any of those issues as it relates to American citizens and the application of our criminal laws here in this country. But that's very different than retaliating.
Could not have been stated more forcefully. Senator Kyl, do you expect this to be swift?
Well, we've made tremendous progress just in the day and a half that have passed since this tragedy in identifying people that we think had something to do with it and expanding the investigation to a larger network. I think what we're going to find is that we will make good progress quickly because of the skill of our people, but that we're going to find a very large network of people complicit in this operation. And the difficulty is that we may find that they are people of different origins or nationalities, people who lived in different countries, who traveled to different countries, and we may find that different countries harbored some of them, and perhaps those that still live are being harbored yet in other countries. So it may be quite difficult for us to find targets here that we can retaliate against.
Larry, one very important thing.
Quickly, yeah.
Real quickly, NATO, for the first time in its history, passed what they call an Article 5 resolution saying that if this attack was organized from abroad, it is an attack against all of NATO. They will participate in any retaliation. This is the most significant thing that's happened, and Colin Powell is to be complimented in the way in which he's generating support, including from Russia, China, and moderate states in the Middle East. It's a big deal.
We thank Senators Lieberman, Biden, and Kyl. We'll be calling on them again. Joining us now to discuss this from a standpoint of aviation and aviation safety. In Columbus, Ohio, is Mary Schiavo, aviation safety expert, former Inspector General, Department of Transportation. Here in Los Angeles, Michael Barr, Director of the Aviation Safety Program at the University of Southern California. That program draws students from throughout the United States and the world. 20,000 aviation professionals have attended. Barr himself is a former Air Force fighter pilot. And in Philadelphia, a return visit from Arthur Woke, the aviation safety and law expert, a qualified pilot himself, and a strong critic of what happened. He thinks there was a total breakdown of enforcement and that this never should have happened. Mary, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Not only was there a total breakdown, this never should have happened. The government has known about these weaknesses, has discussed these weaknesses. I participated in some of these discussions within the government literally in the early 90s, clear up through 96. This was a known weakness and an accepted risk. The only people kept in the dark were the American public.
Michael Barr?
Well, I agree. You know, the one mortal weakness and one mortal enemy of aviation safety and security is complacency. And that's exactly what we were guilty of, is complacency.
Who was complacent? The security people? All of us?
Security people, the government, the airlines, everyone. After the Pan Am 103 accident, we had 60 recommendations on security. Then we had another accident in which we said, all right, Americans are going to be victims of terrorists in America, American buildings. We must act now. That report was in 1996 after TW 800, the Gore Commission, and not all those results have ever been implemented.
And the obvious question, Arthur, is why not?
Well, because we have a tombstone mentality within the agency responsible for aviation safety, and that's the Federal Aviation Administration. You know, Larry, there was a knee-jerk reaction today. The FAA implemented some rules at airports that are going to delay tens of millions of passengers. You know, not a single one of the rules implemented today would have prevented this tragedy. So the tragedy of the tragedy is that the government still doesn't get it. It still doesn't have the sense to understand what is necessary to protect our citizens, and that is sky marshals, If we have to arm the pilots, let's do it. If we have to train the flight attendants in martial arts, let's do it. If we have to scrutinize our passengers better, let's do it.